They were just the glam of my garden last year. Between the powdery mildew and disease and probably, but in 2021, I am over that. Last year, I drowned myself in multiple pots of basil. You are going to be stunned by the beauty of this variety. I know that that's almost blasphemous, but I have a good reason. Hey y'all, it's Cassandra from Becoming a Farm Girl. Welcome to my What I'm Growing from Seed haul in 2021. Now, the majority of my seeds are from Baker's Creek and Seed Savers Exchange, which specialize in organic heirloom seeds. I truly want a Monsanto-free garden, and so I largely purchase from companies that have taken the Safe Seed Pledge, and I'm about 85% there and 90% organic. I would describe myself as a kitchen gardener that focuses on high-intensity planting in containers and raised beds and vertical structures like green stalks, and that's because I am growing in a city townhouse lot. I'm a gardener growing in Maryland Zone 7A. So what's my garden goal for this year? Good question. While I proved to myself in 2020 that I could grow full-size varieties, my harvests were small and infrequent, but I had to scratch that itch. This year, it is all about high-density planting and integrating early and late varieties so that I always have something growing and something to harvest. Now, when I'm not in the garden, I am in my kitchen canning or finding another way to live a farm-fresh life in the city in a small space and in my spare time. I am a homestead dreamer with full-time work outside of my home. And if that sounds like you, consider joining me here weekly where I share how you can say yes to your farm dream without land or livestock. Now, let's get to the haul, but if you're interested in any of the varieties, just look in the description box below. Y'all, all I can say is that this will be the year of the pepper for my garden. I will be growing over 7 different varieties. And I decided to go full steam ahead this year because there are so many pepper varieties that do excellent in containers or raised beds. And not to mention that the variety of peppers that I have are going to add so much color and texture in the garden. And there are just so many ways to preserve your peppers, whether you can them or ferment them or dehydrate them to make your own spice blends. So I'm really excited to have peppers. I mean, you can do all the things with peppers. So first up, we have some tam peppers. These are a very mild hot pepper that are high yielding jalapenos that work well for salsa and stir fries, pickling, and provide just that flavor punch to any dish. These are really great for container growers and are pick and come again. All right, so next up we have these kirbasi peppers, and Jess from Roots and Refuge made me do it. These are actually an heirloom that's from Turkey, and they're one of the most productive peppers ever. They're actually very sweet, and they grow, as you can see, on a very long, curved, kind of twisty length of about 10 inches. And oh my goodness, these are just going to be eye-catching in the garden. And I can't wait to grind these into spices or to just chop them up and throw them on an egg scramble. So next up we have the Santa Fe Grande pepper, and these are another high yielding pepper with moderate heat. These are going to be perfect for the kitchen garden. This variety is great for pickling and salsas, which are going to be so beautiful in their jars and as gifts. So next up, we have just a classic jalapeno. This is the Craig's Grande Jalapeno. And these peppers have the thick flesh, size, and flavor that you crave from a jalapeno. Now, a new addition to my garden this year will be the shishito peppers, and so many people were raving about them, so I had to give them a try. If you haven't heard of shishito peppers, they are mildly spicy with a little smoky and a little sweet combination, and they also come with an element of surprise. So apparently, approximately 1 in 10 of the shishito peppers are extremely hot. A lot of people like the shishito peppers because their shape and texture make them great for stuffing and roasting. Another pepper that I'll be growing this year is the Melrose sweet pepper. Now, I actually purchased these last year, but I didn't have an opportunity to plant them. But when I came across this review that I'm about to share with you, I was immediately captivated by them. Y'all, listen to this review. The real magic comes through cooking Melrose. Saute or roast with garlic and olive oil and serve them with Italian bread for a simple, exquisite appetizer. These plants are highly productive, so you can experiment with new recipes like krushki, I think that's how you pronounce it. Hang peppers to dry for 3 to 4 weeks, then deep fry in olive oil for a crunchy pepper chip that adds flavor and texture to any dish. Y'all, I've got to try that. I've got to try that. So I'm really looking forward to growing Melrose peppers this year. All right, so next up we have some squash, specifically just 2 varieties of spaghetti squash. Y'all, last year spaghetti squash was just not good for me. Between the powdery mildew and disease and probably a location where it wasn't getting enough sun, I had to uproot these towards the end of the season, and it just, it crushed me because I really wanted to grow spaghetti squash. But hey, sometimes that's how things go. And this year I'm still really optimistic about growing them because I have a new location mapped out and I've just done some more research on how to successfully grow spaghetti squash. I'm really excited about growing spaghetti squash because of how well it stores. I still have spaghetti squash that I picked up from the farmer's market in August that's just sitting on a shelf out of direct light, and they're so delicious. So fingers crossed, hopefully this year I will have some spaghetti squash. I am going to try my hand at growing watermelon for the first time this year, and so I selected a small size variety known as the Small Shining Light Watermelon. This variety is a sweet, short season melon that holds well in storage and is early maturing. I plan to grow these on a trellis, so I'm glad that they won't take up too much of my deck space. All right, so next up we have cucumbers, which are so fun to grow. What I love about cucumbers is that even towards the end of the season, when their vines are turning brown and they become the eyesores of your garden, you can still find baby cucumbers that are puckering through. Plus, a homegrown cucumber is just the best, and I love making my own pickling blends. As someone who does a lot of container growing, I will never be without bushy cucumbers. These make great snacking pickles that you can harvest early for bite-sized pickles or allow them to grow a little longer for slices or spears. Last year, these were very productive growers in my garden. This year, I'm going to try a Garden Sweet Burpless Hybrid. This is a hybrid of the Japanese long cute, and it's supposed to be resistant to powdery mildew. So I wanted to go ahead and give these a try for this year. All right, so now we're gonna talk about eggplant, and this year I'll be growing the Ping Tung, the Florida High Bush, and the Morden Midget or the Madoran Mini varieties of eggplant. Y'all, there is nothing like harvesting eggplant in the summer and immediately putting it on the grill or sizzling it in cast iron to make whatever you want out of it. It's a vegetable I've grown to love over the years, and since learning how to pickle eggplant in olive oil using an Italian spice recipe known as melanzane sotto aceto, I have been addicted to making sure that I have plenty of eggplant that I can use in sandwiches, salads, and pastas. While I'm excited to plant everything in my garden, there's always a wild card that I'm really excited to plant that I either come across in a seed catalog or a YouTube video or a blog, and it just captivates my heart and mind and soul all winter long. And that for me this year is blue jade corn. You are going to be stunned by the beauty of this variety. So blue jade corn is a dwarf sweet corn variety, and it's one of the only that can be grown in containers. When ripe, the kernels turn from white to this gorgeous steel blue and then green when cooked. Each plant yields 2 ears half the size of a standard ear of sweet corn. I cannot wait to enjoy a few ears fresh and then showcase the rest of it in glass jars on my counter that I'll use for popping. I mean, this is just going to be gorgeous, right? So now let's move to zucchini. I grew tons of this variety last year and they did excellent. It is the Black Beauty Zucchini, and this variety is great for fresh eating or immediate cooking. They're really great fried or steamed or simmered. It'll grow larger and slower than the Ford hook, which is what I'm also growing, making it a great kind of second option. This will be my first year growing the Ford hook zucchini, but I am very interested in this variety from Baker's Creek because it's an excellent variety for freezing, which is great because this variety needs to be picked frequently in order to maximize the production of the plant. We enjoy zucchini raw and cooked, so I am really excited about having a quick growing variety. So this year for peas, I'll be growing the Sugar Pod 2 Snow Pea again, and then I'll be trying a new variety of Amish snap peas. And both of these are varieties that thrive in cool weather and are just excellent. Better yet, after I've planted something that's nutrient intensive like squash or tomatoes, I love planting peas that act as a shot in the arm for nitrogen levels in the soil. Y'all, don't judge me for having a lean tomato box. I know that that's almost blasphemous, but I have a good reason. A farmer's market that is literally a stone's throw away from my house is also a nursery, which creates a perpetual glorious dilemma for me. In addition to shopping there April through December, I always designate a portion of my gardening budget to support their plant sales through their tomatoes and their herbs, which have always been excellent quality and they have great variety. Plus, they always save my start order, and they always ask me, do I want to order the same thing or more? And the answer is always yes and yes. But as a backup, I do have these tomato glaciers, which are a full-size variety. And then I also have Matt's Wild Cherry tomatoes. In terms of the herbs that I start from seed, I have Genovese basil and cilantro, and I've also got some parsley. Last year, I drowned myself in multiple pots of basil, and I loved it. Right now it's February, and I'm not even close to thinking that I have to ration any of the pesto that I made with heavy cream and Parmesan cheese and an assortment of nuts. Ugh. This summer, I even made basil salt as a way to preserve all of my harvest, and it is excellent sprinkled on eggs and meat and in pasta sauces. If the weather complies, basil will abound again this year. Bare spots beware, you will be filled with basil. For the first time this year, and at my dad's request, I am going to be growing okra from seed, and I went with the Clemson Spineless 80 variety, which is supposed to be highly productive. So one of the first varieties of beans that I'm growing are rattlesnake pole beans. These are a beautiful, easy to grow plant that typically reach around 6 to 8 inches tall with these beautiful purple and brown stripes. These are such a prolific grower. They're stringless when they're newly grown, and that's also when they're the most tender to eat. Now they do get a little stringy the longer that they're left to grow, but the taste is still definitely there. There are some crops that you plant and you're just immediately captivated by them, and for me, it was definitely the purple potted pole bean. They were just the glam of my garden last year. These beans are vigorous growers that produce heavy yields of this gorgeous deep royal purple, and they easily grow to about 5 to 7 inches long. I mean, the ones I picked last year were longer than my hand, and they have a width of about 1/2 inch. Now, once blanched, they do lose their color and they cook green. These are also just a really easy seed-saving plant. Another bean that I'm growing this year that will be new to my garden are the Seychelles pole beans. This is a bean that I've heard lots about from avid bean growers who say that it is an excellent grower that produces round pods that drop in clusters of 6 for easy and continuous harvest. These beans also grow in straight uniform pods, which is pretty much a canner's dream, and I can't wait to try these. So let's talk cutting flowers. So growing cutting flowers is symbolic of a breakthrough in my mindset that I've had as a small space gardener and as a recovering type A. That's because I've had this, I don't know, complex for lack of a better word, that made me feel that it somehow might be irresponsible for me to designate garden space for something that was just pretty or that I couldn't eat. That's because I got locked into this mindset and this mantra of, Cass, you don't have a lot of growing space, so everything you do plant has to be super productive. But in 2021, I am over that. Beauty is important, and it has a function in and of itself. One that, thankfully, is subjective, and it's not tied to any metric. I want to find what I find beautiful scattered throughout my garden and to enjoy the weekly ritual of bringing these fading creations into my home to enjoy them. And what triggered this last year is that when I was becoming overwhelmed with all of the herbs that I was harvesting, so lemon balm and rosemary and thyme and mint and just all of the herbs, what I started to do was just to put them in mason jars, and I would spread them on the table and on our buffet and on the kitchen countertops. And as I looked around, I started to realize that I loved being surrounded by fresh bouquets. And while I am fine to purchase weekly bouquets at the grocery store during the winter, by golly, for at least one season out of the year, I will harvest my own. So all of these cut flower varieties are new to me. They're really easy to grow. They're all cut flowers except for the buckwheat, which it's just stunning. So let me go ahead and give you a look at these gorgeous flowers. Now let's move into medicinal herbs. I'm probably growing about 10 medicinal herbs that will return this year, and I'll certainly pick up some from the nursery. But in terms of medicinal herbs that I'm starting from seed, here's what I have this year. Hang in there, y'all. We have about 6 more containers to go and maybe about 12 more varieties. So when it comes to my lettuces, all of these are a really good mix of short and long growing varieties and are perfect for salads or wraps or sauteing, and so I actually had quite a bit left over from last year. The only new variety that I have this year is the Rouge de Hiver. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. It came free in my Baker Creek seed order and it looks stunning, so I'm really excited to grow this year. The rest of these varieties give me an eclectic mix to always have a stunning salad. Check out this Technicolor Swiss Chard. We love kohlrabi around here, and all of the parts of kohlrabi are edible except for the roots, and no matter when you harvest them, it will be delicious. This season I'm planning to use them in interplantings because they have a small footprint and don't give too much shade, making it something that I can easily tuck in almost anywhere in the garden. Truly, Brussels sprouts are a test of my patience. Now, I enjoy them as a vegetable. I pickle them, bake them, fry them. But growing them is another thing. This year, I'm going to plant them in the spring for a fall harvest and just be patient. The end. This year for my cabbage, I'm going to go ahead and grow the early Jersey Wakefield again. I really enjoy this variety because it's suited for northern growing climates, and it's a versatile cabbage that checks all of the boxes. It's great for eating raw in salads and in slaws, cooking and fermenting, and it has really great wrapping leaves. In terms of turnips, I will again be planting the Naboroxo Comprito turnip. Last year, these did so well. I grew them in 10-gallon cloth bags, and they are excellent. They can be sown in spring for an early maturity variety around 40 days, or in your fall garden as a late maturing variety. It's a beautiful turnip with a long white root and a purple top. These are just stunning. For my carrots, I'm going to go with the short and sweet variety. I plan to grow my carrots in ground beds, not containers, but my native soil is extremely sandy and rocky. I'm on year 2 of a compost regimen, and this year I'll be adding worm castings, but building soil takes time. In the meantime, growing a short variety like this allows me to grow carrots without them looking too gnarly. And I will also be growing some California soft neck garlic. Now in my zone and climate, the long neck garlic works best, and that's what I have growing out back right now to harvest later on this year. But when I came across this variety that I could grow in the summer, I became intrigued. So this is a variety that I'm going to try for this year and see how it goes. Another thing that I'm trying this year is asparagus. This is the Mary Washington variety, and you harvest it late spring to early summer. I love eating asparagus, and I think that it would just be so great potentially for an Easter meal to just go out. We always have asparagus paired with our lamb, but to just go ahead and have my own homegrown asparagus, that would be great. If you're a small space grower interested in how I use kitchen gardening to live a more self-sufficient life in the city, consider joining me here weekly. I'll see you in my kitchen or garden soon. Take care.